Welcome back to another episode of the Oh So Spurs podcast. We are back after an unfortunate defeat to the Wolverhampton Wanderers, and with no game to necessarily look forward to this week, it'll be interesting to see what exactly we do here.
Mhm.
So, I'm here with Sai. How you doing, Sai?
Yeah, I'm all right, mate. Slumming it in Barbados, so really pulling all the stops out for this week.
Yeah, sounds hard. Sounds hard.
Tough job,
Johnny,
brother.
what about you? How you doing?
Yeah, I'm really good. Well, no, I'm all right. I'm okay. I'm starting to see through the fog. I was so depressed after the weekend. Really, that defeat is probably the worst of the season for me, actually, in many ways. So, yeah, we'll talk about that shortly, I'm sure. But anyway, good to see. How are you, Deej?
I'm doing fine. I woke
Yeah.
up super early because I was in the West Coast to watch the game, and I wish I had stayed asleep.
Ooh, ouch.
Stu, what about you? How are you doing?
I'm all right. I was expecting a tough game. It was worse than I was expecting, but it is what it is, and we move on to the next one.
Yeah. Fortunately, there's not another game this week, so we can put this one out with a memory. But I do think that we'll talk about why it could be good later. But I guess first we'll go to game reactions. Everyone's had a couple of days to kind of digest the loss. Don't want to go spewing too much out after a game you feel like you should have won going into it. We're not necessarily incredibly confident in a win, but it's one of those games you kind of go in expecting to win. So losing never feels great. We'll start with you, Stu. What did you think about the game? What do you think we did well? What do you think we did poorly? How could we have?
Well, not much, to be perfectly honest. Well, to start with the well part. Obviously, I'm going to shout out my man Vic. I thought he had another amazing game, and I do wonder where we would be this season without Vic if we had not even Lloris of last season, but just a standard goalkeeper, because he has been amazing. What did we do well? We kept the ball well. We passed it. We had a lot more passes than they did. We had a lot more possession than they did, and that's about it. I don't want to have a go at the scapegoats on Twitter, which are Edison Royale and Emerson Royale, sorry, and Davis. I don't think they played particularly bad. I thought they gave it their best shot. They are not perfect for those roles, but I don't think they were any worse than many of the other big name players such as Madison and Son, who in my opinion were pretty poor, and no one ever seems to have a go at them. I think in general what went wrong was something that we spoke about in the last couple of pods, that the players are coming back. They're not match fit. They have been out. It's going to take a while for them to get up to speed. For some players who've been out at Asian or African Cups to come back in, get up to the speed of the Premier League, get used to playing with the teammates again. And I think it's a little bit of keeping things in perspective. But what we did do wrong, and I think Ange should have a go at the team for, is we were slow. We were slow on the ball. We were predictable. And I don't think the wide players were brave enough trying to take on the man. It was always too simple, either trying to run with speed, and if we didn't have the space, which they were well prepared for and didn't give us, we didn't have anybody who was able to take a man on or even really tried to take a man on, in my opinion. And we were just predictable and easy to be stopped.
Yeah,
So,
it's obviously hard to draw too many positives from a loss. But Johnny, what do you think? You have anything to add?
Yeah, I suppose. Stu's obviously right about Vicario. I would say that even Vicario, and he still gets at least a 7 out of 10, maybe an 8. He was, whether the team were affecting him or not. I thought there was a couple of times when his distribution was also really slow, which he's not normally that way inclined. I mean, there was one time I think maybe it was after we went 3-1 down in the stadium. Obviously, everyone's getting 2-1 down. Everyone's getting really frustrated because it wasn't in the script that was going to happen, and you could sort of feel quite tangibly, the frustration was quite tangible, and it was a little bit like last year in some ways. The sense of just like exactly what Stu's just said, how slow we were. Like the ball, we had so much of the possession, we had so much of the territory, but it really didn't make any difference in terms of the chances. Wolves, in spite of the fact they had fewer shots, they definitely had clearer scoring chances, I would say, and certainly Vicario had to do more than their goalkeeper. So I don't know. Like, I agree. I think Porro and Udogie obviously make a massive difference in terms of the pace and the way we attack. And if you've got Emerson Royal with the ball at his feet in the final third on the right hand side, you can sort of almost put your house on the fact he's going to check inside and pass it backwards. Like that's what will happen. And it's a bit frustrating for me because I think there were a couple of I think probably Kulusevski made a few more attempts to beat the man, and there was a chance he carved out very close to the end for Davies when he put in a good cross, which I don't know how he didn't score. I haven't watched the game back since it was there, but we were all on our feet. We just assumed that was the net was about to bulge then, and that seemed like a absolutely shocking miss. I don't know if it was as bad as it felt at the time, but I guess I think that those are the main points really. The thing that has annoyed me the most is just how knee jerk or how over the top the reaction of the supporters is since the defeat, since the final whistle, and like getting really, really hissy fitty about it. I'm sorry, like everyone is entitled to their opinion, of course, but I just think it's kind of insane what people's expectations seem to be, and especially when it's in a couple of cases taking the form of being quite critical of Postecoglou and him being found out and things like that. I think, wait a minute, like I know in other media and everything, there's again the references to the length of time it took Klopp to win his first trophy, 4 years, and Arteta having a couple of 8th place finishes in his first 2 full seasons. And like now, even just before Christmas, Arteta out was kind of like not that, it was fairly prevalent, amongst the Arsenal supporters, and now they're going to win the league again, So that sort of thing, it shouldn't bother me as much as it does, but it really does bother me, and I just think that we're actually not that far off being as sort of competitive as we were saying for most of the beginning of the season, and probably the trajectory being so crazy good at the start and then falling away with the injuries, with the suspensions, and now the guys are, like Stu just saying, they're just coming back. It's perfectly against the teams. It's actually people, and myself included, were probably a little bit disrespectful of Wolves. I predicted 3-0, was maybe just a little bit like rose-tinted glasses. Stu's usually the person who's got a bit more measure on these things, and in fairness, he was probably much closer to the mark with his prediction than I was, and good old Cy, was optimism too. So, I think we shouldn't underestimate the opposition. There's almost no team in the Premier League that isn't capable of doing what Wolves did, and there you go. It was just like when we've got our foot. Sorry,
they've beaten 4 of the last 5 games now.
Yeah, exactly,
So,
exactly. Yeah, I know. You just think you should be beating them because of the name, which is bonkers, really, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, there no easy games in the Premier League. I mean, look at Sheffield United. They've been getting waxed over and over again. It took us to the 98th minute to beat them.
Yeah,
every
exactly.
game's a struggle.
Losing.
Anything to add?
Yeah.
So I agree with everything the two lads have said, and probably not much more to add about that particular game. I think a more worrying trend, or a more, not concerning, but something that's interesting is if you look at our defensive displays at the start of the season, we were one of the best defensive sides in the league, and now we've got, I think it's the 5th or 6th worst XG against in the league, and there's only sort of like Sheffield United, Luton, and people like that below us. So that's a concern. That's a bit of a concern that we've gone from playing so well at the back to having those troubles. And Vic has got some of the best stats for a keeper. So if you look at the XG against plus the keeper's performance, that goes to tell you that we're outperforming where we should be, and we're just conceding too many goals a game. 1.5, I think it is a game at the moment, and no clubs qualified for the Champions League conceding that many goals per game. The highest was 1.3, I think, when Newcastle got there. So there's definitely some stuff that he needs to sort out at the back, and it needs to absolutely needs to tighten it up. We do look where I think teams are, they're not finding us out, but where they're exploiting us is because the fullbacks invert, you leave a lot of space down in those corners. And when you've got players the speed that Wolves have got and are adept and fully coached at hitting on the break, they're going to do that to you. And we got caught out quite a few times into those channels with the speed of their turnovers and their speed of transition. That's something he's got to get into on the training ground. And I hope that as the players come back, they get match fit, they get playing together again, and then you get Bentancur coming back online. Hopefully, you'll start to see, because I don't think it's necessarily the defence; it's the unit. It's that midfield defensive unit that is not clicking properly at the moment. So we're finding ourselves like I said, since the Newcastle game, finding ourselves a little bit light in midfield, I think, and we need those midfielders to come back, start clicking. Biss, Sarr, Bentancur, Maddison to get back onto the top of their game, and I think you'll see the defensive side tighten up.
And every single one of those players, though, has been either injured or they've been away.
Exactly.
Duty,
so
So
and you can't just plump them all back into a team and say, right, get back to the level you're at. You haven't trained together for 6, 8, 10 weeks or whatever as a unit, so it's gonna take a bit of time, and we've all got to just fucking calm down a little bit. We're fifth in the table. With 13 games to go. If you gave us that at the start of the season, we said, we were predicting, I think, roughly between us, around about 6th as an average. I think we would have landed on. I think I said 5th or 6th. Johnny, you were about the same, 4th or 5th. I can't remember what one of us, 7th or 8th. Listen, there was always going to be times this season where things didn't work, and we knew that. It's just happened, to Johnny's point, it's happened after a great start, so we expect that great start to go on that type of run for the rest of the season. We just got to calm down, fellas.
I think the frustrating thing was that the goals, yes, that we have been weak and we have been open, but the actual goals were 2 complete switch-offs from us. I mean, short bloke scoring from the header was just unacceptable.
Totally.
And the second one, but Juan Romero wasn't really pulling a gut to get back. But 2, Bissouma was the one who lost it on the edge of the box. Then he got back, and then he didn't pay attention to the man he should have been tracking. All he had to do was stay close to him, and that goal doesn't go in either. And that said, anyway, we should have got away with a draw if Davis had knocked in that header, which probably 9 out of 10 times he puts away. So it really isn't the end of the world. It's just a couple of silly switch-offs and a bit of luck, and we'd all be like, all right, we got away with a draw, and we move on.
Yeah.
And do we think now that 2 weeks on the training ground is good, or would we rather them be playing matches? And
yes, they need to be. Because as much as I'm not going to criticize Davies and Emerson for doing jobs that they aren't necessarily built to do, I think that it's a lot better if we have Porro and Udogie. I don't think that's necessarily a hot take or a reactionary one, especially with Porro, because he's just his ability. He's the best crosser on our team. I think I can't really think of anybody who does it better than he does. So when you replace that with someone who for 2.5 years we yelled at to never cross the ball ever, perhaps a little bit unfairly, obviously, but it's just the system's not going to work as well. Like you can, it's like when it's not his fault necessarily. It's not his skill set, and I think he played fine for the role that he was brought in to do. I think he performed to the best of his ability. It just his his strengths don't align very well with the strengths that he needs to have for the system to work as
Yeah.
effectively as it can.
Yeah.
And we don't have the squad depth for Ange's football yet. We've got a few players in there. We've probably got about 13 or 14 that Ange would say he'd be comfortable in that system. But the rest of the squad is either developing youngsters coming through, or as much as I hate to say it, Emerson and Davies are never going to be solid Postecoglou system players, I don't think. So we're going to need another couple of transfer windows, I think, before he gets his full squad that he can really then give it another year. Then you can start saying whether he's been found out or not. Once he's got players in place that are fully entrenched in his system, and then you can have that conversation. I don't think you can have it at the moment, and I think it's ridiculous to start having that conversation.
Yeah, I thought Davies was fine. I think Davies is a really interesting case in Tottenham, where he is paired with a player who is worse than him at what they're trying to do. And so whenever we say, oh, we need to replace this player, it's this player and Ben Davies. Because he's just he's milk toast, he's Welsh. No one's like a Ben Davies super fan, I don't think.
I love Davis, but he's getting too old for this system, and his shelf life. He's a decent utility player, but he's not. Yeah. You wouldn't have him in that squad if you were saying this is the perfect Ange squad, would you?
Yeah, I would. I guess not, but at the same time, I don't no one's gonna have their perfect squad, I guess, and I think there are a lot of worse options than Davies in that, because I think he's tidy enough on the ball. I think he's better than someone like Reguilon, for example.
Oh, without a doubt. Oh, 100%. But if we're talking about regular top four challenging for titles over the next 2 or 3 years, Ben Davies isn't a total challenging left-sided player for you.
I think he's a title challenging backup. I think it's
not for me. I think you need another good flying left-sided player.
Bring that guy in because he's going to be 60 million and want to start every game, and that's the problem. Is that go ahead, Stu.
I would say that I have no issue with Davis, and I hope he stays. I think he did a decent job. I think he always does a decent job, and to be honest, I find it really frustrating how, no matter what, our fan base, if the result's not a good one, our fan base goes for him. I heard he had more key passes, I think, than anybody else on the pitch for us at the game. So even there, he didn't do badly. I do agree with you, though, Si, that I think Davis, for me, is a great squad player, but I would look at another left back to replace Cess, who would be a little bit more doggy style. But I wouldn't get rid of Davis. I would, on the other hand, move on Royale and get someone that fits the role better, because I do think that is
Royale needs to go into a traditional right back role, doesn't he? And he'll do absolutely fine at a club where he plays right back. He just can't come inside. He looks so uncomfortable when he hits that midfield, and he's got to look all around him because he's got the challenges coming thick and fast.
Exactly.
That's a difficult, and Porro does that so well that the drop off is. The drop off is just so huge. But he'll do perfectly well in a back four where he's got to play that right back role. He'll do perfectly fine. He's a good buy for somebody for that role.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was just making the point that I think that Davies, before it was Davies and Dyer need to go, and now it's Emerson and Davies need to go. And I think that it's unfair of Davies to be lumped into either of those groups, because if we got the option to get Udogie Light as a left back, I would jump on that, as long as that player didn't want to start matches, which I think is unreasonable if you're a young player, and if you're an old player, you've probably played in a system that doesn't necessarily match what Angeball does, because inverting fullbacks is still relatively new in the footballing sphere, at least recently. And I think that because Davies has spent most of his career bouncing between center back and fullback, I think it gives him a sort of unique position where he can feel a bit more comfortable being in the place where he was. And I don't think we're talking about Davies being bad at all if he manages to put a point blank header into the net.
Exactly.
That wasn't as easy a header as I think
Wasn't
it
it?
was. He was leaning back a bit. He had to
Right.
try and get over it. So it
Okay.
was. I think it was a miss, but I don't think it was on a plate miss.
Yeah, it wasn't like a 0.8 xG shot, but I think that the xG on
No.
that shot was like between 0.4 and 0.6, which if you're a Premier League player is usually one that you should be putting home. I'm not going to say that I don't, obviously any of us go and we break every bone in our body trying to get to the ball, but
I'll pull my hamstring putting the boots on.
Yeah, the other
But
thing,
yeah.
just the only other thing I'd say about when you're talking about, I certainly wouldn't disagree with the comments about Royale, but I have massive affection for Royale after the way he's responded to the
Same.
crap that was served, and
Yeah.
the way he stepped in with Davies, securing the point at City and stuff, like in out of position, like he's a decent defender, so. And he really deserves a lot of admiration, I think, for the way he's invested in his own development and stuff. So,
agreed.
It does, as kind of Deidre's alluding to there, it makes me laugh when you've got people in WhatsApp groups and Twitter and the like saying, he's crap, he's rubbish. I mean, guys, these people have got more skill in their small toe than we do in our entire bodies. I mean, these are top professionals. And Edison is a top defender. He's just not made for the style of football we're trying to play.
Exactly.
And he seems a good bloke
even to
as well.
mention his skill on the mic.
that's right.
But yeah, I think overall it was unfortunate that we lost both of our wing backs at the same time. Just really, really bad timing. Would we have won the game if we had both of them? Who's to say? Maybe, maybe not. I'm not gonna make that call because I don't have the ability to see alternate timelines. But
when are they back? They'll be back for Palace, I think.
It sounded like it wasn't long term for either of them, which is why I'm very happy that we have this week in between to make sure that they're back to full fitness. But yeah,
you guys...
I do think that this. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask if you guys are worried about the new manager bounce.
Yes.
I mean.
Yeah, of course. Because it has to be against us as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep. It's always always worried if it's against. Honestly, I'm worried about any team when Tottenham plays. There's always something.
The other thing that's made the weekend so like maybe disproportionately disappointing is the fact that obviously the other teams have all picked up 3 points, and now we've got United really hot on our heels. And then they've obviously got the game before we have the game, so we could find ourselves. I don't know what their goal difference is like compared to ours. Isn't great.
Much less than us.
Much
less. Is it okay? Right.
Yeah, they were on 0 goal difference at one point a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, yeah, but obviously they're on the run of form, even in terms of results. I know their performances by all accounts haven't been as convincing as maybe their points tally suggests, but I guess that is the thing. You sort of feel with. It's the old what if kind of thing where we would be in the league if and I think that's
plus one their goal difference plus 14 ours. So whilst ours isn't great, it's 13 better than ours.
And also the other lot that we dislike so intensely are banging them in for fun, and they're getting all cocky again. Which it will be nicer when they fall from that height, I suppose, but it's still not very pleasant when they're doing what they're doing. It definitely makes things feel worse, doesn't it?
Yeah, everything is, especially with how kind of stratified the Premier League has become. It's for better or for worse, it's become seen as like a the Big Six plus maybe Newcastle these days. I guess Everton isn't really there anymore, but the big clubs are just expected to beat everybody else all the time. So whenever you drop a game, even though like Wolves are a very good team in their own right. Every team in the Premier League is a very, very good team and can beat anybody on any given weekend. But because it's just what we've come to expect, I guess it just feels that much worse, especially when no one else is dropping points around you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's just about enough of talking about a loss. I don't know about you guys, but I am ready to move on. We have I guess, a bye week this week, to use an American term, because we've got a postponed game against Chelsea, which honestly, thank God, in my opinion, because not that I want to dodge Chelsea or anything. It's not because I'm scared of them. It's because like we mentioned earlier, I want just a week to let everyone get back to fitness. Son has played like 8,000 games in January and February. Let him just have a rest. Put him on his couch in front of his Samsung TV or whatever the heck he's promoting these days, and just keep him there for like a day or two. I know Son is obviously one of those people who wants to improve every day, but he needs to take it easy just for a few days. We need to get Poro back. We need to get Udogi back. We need Basuma back to full fitness. Bentancur is still not fully fit. Madison, Solomon. We have a lot of players who are on the cusp of fitness, but aren't quite fit enough to be as effective as potentially they would be otherwise. So a week like this, I think, is very good for our squad.
Yeah.
And let's just hope that Chelsea lose in that final.
Yes.
It's Pochettino. I'm not worried.
Don't tempt fate, mate.
I know.
Oh, proper Spurs fans, too.
I know.
Yep. Now that I've put that out into the world, it's guaranteed. Chelsea to lift the cup. It's going to be, and then we're going to have to live with that for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
That would be on track with how this week has gone, I think, for Tottenham. But to kind of pivot off of, I guess, current Tottenham in general, there was a question that I think we missed from our last set of questions that I thought was really interesting, and it was about jerseys. I think that's way more fun to talk about than losing. So we're going to talk to that, and I'm going to ask everybody. I'm going to start with Sai, I guess, because he's the one right next to me on my screen right now. What is your favorite Tottenham kit of all time? And maybe a story connected to it.
So I think so. The one that I really like is probably just even a little bit before my time when I was going. It's the one that you see Ardiles and Villa pictured in when they signed in that. I think it's a 77, 78. We had it for 2 seasons anyway. So the 77, 78 one, the Admiral with the collar. That's the classic. But I think my favourite is just linked to the season where, as a youngster, I went the most that I ever went in that time, home and away, which was the 86, 87 season, and that's the Chevron Cup final one. I think we were alluding to it a little bit earlier in the off air. It was Hoddle's last game, the FA Cup final. I went there, managed to get in. It's 87 against Coventry, right? I managed to get in on a ticket that, Jesus Christ, it must have been drawn in crayon just saying, please let me in, right? Rather than any sort of formal ticket. I was 17 at the time. I paid £50 for the ticket, which was probably, I was on the YTS scheme at the time, if anyone remembers the YTS scheme back in the UK. And I think I was on 22 quid a week, and I paid 50 quid for a ticket. So that was nuts. And managed to get in. It was standing at the time as well, so it was all terracing. And then Clive Allen scored early on, and we all thought we'd had such a good season. We thought that that was it. The writing's on the wall until Keith Ouchin's diving header, and the Coventry boys have dined out on that for the last 40 odd years, haven't they? So yeah, that's probably, it's got the most affectionate memories for me, I think, just because of that season was most of it was such a stunning season until the last ends, where I think Arsenal knocked us out in the semi-final of the League Cup that year as well.
Yeah, that went to a third game, didn't it? Because it finished like level on aggregate, and didn't we beat them their place, and they beat us at the Lane.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, it
we
was-
won the toss for the replay. Or where would it be? And obviously we had to choose White Hart Lane, even though we'd actually lost at White Hart Lane,
Yeah,
and we
yeah.
lost the bloody replay. I remember that. Yeah, was that the season when Clive Allen scored like 50 goals or something?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Was it 47 he got? I think.
Yeah, something like that. He was up
49,
front
wasn't
and
it?
the midfield just supplying him. He just kept knocking
He
them all
was
in.
incredible. Yeah, incredible.
Oh.
Well, I was hoping for a few, winning memories, but I guess it's
well,
Tottenham,
most of
so-
that season was a winning memory. Most of that season was, but yeah. But anyway,
classic Tottenham, I suppose. Not to jump into that whole can of worms, but all right, Johnny, what about you? You got any favorites to stick out in your mind?
I suppose like you've always got a fond affection for your first jersey, and for me that was the centenary year. So I would have been 8 or 9, and I had actually got the home and the away jersey that year. And one weird thing that sticks in my mind is my mother, the light blue, the away light blue one, and it was quite cool because it said centenary year on above the cockerel and Tottenham Hotspur thing underneath. And it was a Le Coq Sportive jersey.
yeah.
Which was quite a cool make, quite like that make. And yeah, my mother ironed it, which was like really not clever. And she burned a hole. She burned a hole in it. She felt really guilty. It was obviously like in those days, you only got things like that for your birthday, and it was like a really big deal. And you went down to the local sports shop. There's obviously internet was a million miles away. You went down to the local sports shop, and in Inverness, there's one place you go to called Coots. For all the Inverness listeners out there, I'm sure they'll remember it fondly. So yeah, I went down to Coots upstairs, and then there's just the random rack of jerseys, and Tottenham were quite decent then. So there was a Spurs jersey, and she put a hole in it. She did her best to sew it up, and then she felt really guilty. And even though my parents weren't exactly flush, they said they'd replace it. They'd buy another one for me. So I got the Northern Ireland jersey, the away North, because it's around the time they'd just sort of done well in the 1982 World Cup in Spain. So yeah, that was kind of like. I've still got that blue. I'll hunt it out, and I'd maybe try and wear it on one of the next pods, because I reckon pretty similar build as I was when I was 9. I was a big lad. No, I'm a small fella now. maybe not. But I'm sure I could use it as a hanky. Oh no, that would be an Arsenal jersey. I'll just shut up. My favorite. My favourite jersey from an aesthetic point of view, I think actually Deej was wearing it quite recently, is that pony one when we had Ginola in the mid to late 90s. And I just think that blue, sort of a navy blue, it's just maybe a bit of gold on it and stuff. It's pretty classy. It's a pity that the team at the time was pretty rank. But that's when we had the thing we all give out about the red AIA sponsor ruining and in those days Hewlett Packard, and it was like a navy on the sponsorship on the home jersey, and that was like a yellowy gold on the away jersey, which I really like that. And pony's pretty class, like kind of goes with the Cockney kind of vibe as well. So yeah, those are the ones that I would probably pick out.
All right, Stu, what about you?
Yeah, I've same one as Sai. I think it's just an iconic design. I think it's just, obviously the Hummel, Holston, anyway, all of them I think were quite good. Particularly that one with the chevron going across the side. I thought it was just brilliant. And for me, it was also the year that I actually started following Spurs, and the year I fell in love with Spurs. So obviously, from romantic, emotional level, it's the one that really means a lot to me. And as you kind of alluded to, Deej, it kind of set me up for a lifetime of being a Spurs fan, as we came really close in the cup, really close in the league. Thought we were going to win it all, and we ended up with nothing.
So John, I don't know if you can see this, boys, but Johnny, that's my screensaver. That's hold on with the 82
nice.
With the 82 shirt, and I've got that as my as my wallpaper.
Love that. What a picture. You don't see Hoddle's legs in it though. That's the only thing.
No, you don't. You got to go to different sites for that.
Yeah, same ones you get the
That
Grealish
type of work.
calves. Have you still got a thing about Grealish's calves, Si?
They are still magnificent. I haven't seen them for a while, but I'm
That's very
assuming
true.
they're still. Assuming they're still chiseled out of granite.
Oh
If
God.
you ever saw the field for City, maybe we could know.
Yeah.
But
What about you, Deej? What's your favorite shirt?
I'm in a completely different. All of these jerseys that y'all have picked, wonderful jerseys before I was born. So
Oh
I'm
my
gonna
God.
be a bit more recent.
There was no need for that, Dick. There's no need for that.
Picking old
I
men when they're
think-
down.
Yeah.
I think let's see. The first kit I remember seeing what Tottenham in when I was like 9 or 10 was, I think, like the powder blue with the, what was the sponsor at the time? It was a Puma jersey. It was like 2010.
Mansion or something, was it?
It was like Erasma or something like that.
Oh yeah, Erasmus.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
I remember
Autonomy.
those were the first ones.
Yeah.
Then I think the first kit I ever got was the 15-16 away kit with there was the like lighter blue with the blue like
Oh,
kind of stripes
like
down
that.
the.
Yeah.
I think that was the first kit that I saw Tottenham in. I was like, I need to get that kit. And obviously now, like, it's a bit easier now, but even
Yeah.
like in like 2015ish, it wasn't the easiest to get to find a kit here without spending $1 billion on shipping to buy it from the UK. But I ended up finding one, and I think I still have it in my closet. I wear it every once in a while. But my favorite aesthetic kit, I love the retro ones. I love the pony ones. I bought a couple of those because I think that they look really, really nice. I have absolutely no memories associated with those. As I said earlier, was not forming thoughts at the time. But if I had to choose one during my time alive, I think it's probably an unpopular one, especially with the crowd I'm running with now. But I loved the oil spill kit from 21-22. Yeah, it's I know it's bright, it's flashy, it's not classy Tottenham, but I think that one and then the third kit from last season are two of my favorite kits we've done. But if I had to go for one, it's that oil spill kit. I need to go find that one somewhere. Oh, and obviously special shout out to the away kit, or maybe it was a third kit because our away kit sucked the year we went to the Champions League final.
I really like that one. Yeah, the more the green one.
Yeah.
Really
nice. The one with the map on it. I think it was.
Yeah.
We had the away kit that was basically like a training jersey from other clubs, and so I don't think we really ever wore it. And we always wore that third kit, and then obviously that Ajax game is gonna cement that jersey in the memory for
forever,
a good long while. Yeah, until we actually win the Champions League, then it'll get replaced. Ange will get us there. Ange will get us there.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay. So now that we've all reminisced a bit, had some happy memories, had some sad ones, talked about times where I wasn't having memories because I was not existing at the time.
Or as we call it, the good old days, Steve.
I appreciate that. We got one more question I want to talk about before we move on, and it's about transfer speculation, because obviously, as it's no longer the transfer window, it is time for transfer speculation. And as it is Tottenham Hotspur, and we are in the midst of a rebuild, despite some of our fans assuming that we should be winning the league by now, we have lots of players, mostly youth, because that's kind of what we've been buying recently, linked to us to come in the summer to revolutionize the team, to make it so that, top four is a shoe-in, if you believe some Twitter tacticos. But the question was basic. I don't have it in front of me, so I'm going to paraphrase, but it was basically just how much is it necessary to talk about this? How worth it is it?
I could, if you want, Deej.
Okay,
It's
awesome. That would be wonderful.
from Rick, from one of our loyal viewers from Down Under. He said, "Are the many high speculative rumors, suggestions about prospective transfers in summer really productive in February, when we have some matches to win and the UCL place to take?"
The answer to that question is it may not be productive for us, but it sure is productive for the people writing the articles and getting the ad revenue. And if they're not getting ad revenue, they're getting Twitter Blue revenue, which is apparently like, the cost of Twitter Blue if you have a massive account these days. So I'm not going to say that that is necessarily an ends that you should be pursuing. But for those that do, creating fake transfer rumors or blowing up the ones that may have some truth to them, but it's February. A deal is not going to get closed right now, unless you're City and you're talking to one of your feeder clubs. I guess that's different. But yeah, I think to an extent it's not useful, but at the same time, in my opinion, it is I think it's a slightly more healthy way of coping than calling our players shit, because like for as much as I think that for as much as we talk about how every single player on this team is incredibly talented, more talented than any of us listening could ever dream of being at this game, and especially those of us talking. We we There are obviously areas that need improvement. We've talked ad nauseum about having like a winger that can beat a man. We talked earlier in the podcast about having like a wing back who can invert effectively and play the Porto role better as a backup. We've talked about in the past having a new striker come in when Richarlison wasn't at his best. So I think that while I don't think that talking about transfer rumors at this point is going to have any real effect on our team in the future, it's mostly just wish casting. I do think that it's looking forward. Hopefully, is better than looking at the present negatively, in my opinion. So yeah, that's just kind of my 2 cents on the issue. Anyone else have any thoughts on discussing BS transfer rumors in February?
So I don't really take any notice of them because, to your point, Deej, there's no deal done in February. It's a lot of it is fluff. People just putting it out there for the clicks, for the follows, blah blah blah. Listen, we've got a team that does that, and I'm pretty sure the team that is doing it isn't feeding these ITKs that are floating around Twitter and Facebook and everywhere else. So yeah, just pinch of salt, really.
I think that even the journalists haven't got a clue. And that's why even when the transfer windows are open, I don't even listen to what they have to say. Because look at the likes of Dragosin. Before Romano basically said, we were talking to him, nobody had a clue. Bergval, where did that come from? Many of the cases.
Van de Ven.
Van de Ven, Vicario. I mean, all these players, nobody knew anything about it until it was pretty much a done deal. Whereas all the other million players we were linked to never actually materialized. So I think that journalists, as DJ was saying, haven't got a clue. They're just doing it for clickbait, for revenue, because they know that we as fans are desperate for anything. We always like the idea of the shiny new toy, and so we'll click on anything because that's what we're interested in. But I think it's all crap. But I do think that Ange has given Lange and his team roles and characteristics of what he's looking for, and I'm sure they're out there scouting it. We'll come up with a short list, and then probably when the end of the season comes to an end, they'll sit down and then they'll start to make the moves. But until then, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean,
really,
I do.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
It's not going to. It's not going to inspire particularly. But I think that when you think back in the hours you spent on Twitter in the summer, and it was like the year when we signed Romero and we were supposed to sign Martinez that summer, and then we were obviously the classic is the whole Willian job. I remember playing. I don't play golf because I play pitch and putt. That's how I roll, baby. And I was on I
So
was
you're not gonna
having the
come play with
best.
me in Dubai.
Yeah, exactly. I was having the best round of pitch putt. Like I was just nailing every green. And
Oh
it was
yeah.
like every 10 minutes, I was
Is
checking
that
to
what you
see
call
like medical. Yeah, exactly. And like we all know what happened there after the medical. It's like there is the cliche about what they'll believe it whenever they see them holding the scarf or holding up the jersey or whatever, and like it's pretty much spot on. And Stu made some really good points there about like the way things are done now are a lot better, and I would personally not be particularly indulgent in the rumors. It's hard not to get sucked in because, like you said, Stu, we do want the shiny toy. We can see the areas where we need to improve. I think the left wing back is becoming more obviously like the centre half was for everybody before. But there's definitely areas that need to be strengthened, and let's just trust the systems that are there now, which seem to be pretty robust and have definitely turned up a lot of good signings recently. And what I'm interested in more in terms of the new recruits is just what's going to happen with Bergval. Is he going to and Felice and players like that? Like, are they going to be regulars next season? Can we? I mean, it's not as if you can't have 18-year-olds making an impact and being really, really making a difference in the Premier League. So maybe Bergville is that good, and he will be able to. I'm being quite skeptical personally when you look at the players coming from our academy. And I know you guys were talking about that in the last pod. I couldn't make that, but there is a big difference between the Swedish First Division and where he is and playing at the top of the Premier League. So that's going to be really interesting to see. And I do trust, like when you look at VDV and you look at Vicario, and obviously it was before that, but it's still a Barataji with the Doggy and Sar. Like they're brilliant, and what brilliant signings we've had in the last couple of years. So yeah, I'd be optimistic about that.
Yeah. I do think that we are getting to a point where transfer rumors matter less for us because I do think we've tightened the ship a lot. I'm thinking back to the Poro transfer in particular, where whether that was our fault or Sporting's or someone else's, every text message between Tottenham and Sporting was leaked. It felt like, whereas with some of especially with like the transfer of like Bergval, there was like a half like a rumor that he was going to Barcelona for the medical, and then we got linked with him, and then like a few days later he signs for us. So I think that we've definitely closed ship a bit with in regards to our transfer policy. That's not necessarily to say nothing will ever get out. Like, for example, if we sign Pedro Neto in the summer, I wouldn't be surprised. Not because we've been linked to him, but because he makes sense as something we would want, especially with our current what's the word I'm looking for? Our current like trend of signing players from teams that need help in the financial fair play department. He would fit right in with those guys. But yeah, I don't know. Not necessarily something to read too much into, honestly. But for me, at worst, if you're like reading a thing, deciding he's good because he's linked to Tottenham, or deciding he's shit because he's linked to Tottenham, and that's the end of it, that's just that feels like dumb. But if you're one of the people who's like, oh, we're linked to this player, I'm gonna go watch this team for a bit, see if, like how good they are. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That's just growing your knowledge of the game. And then who knows? Maybe we sign someone else from that team, and you're like, oh, I saw them play, and you can speak
The
more
one thing I
accurately
do
than
think
90% of Twitter.
that fans need to do is stop thinking it's so done deal and then start slagging off the club when that player doesn't sign.
Yeah, I mean, it's especially like if there's we saw with Dragozin, we saw with Bergval, we see this with players all the time. We saw it with Danjuma last year. If a player is good, your club is not the only club that is in for him, even if your club is the only club that has publicized interest in him. So like there was like we could have lost Dragozin to Bayern. We did lose Luis Diaz allegedly to Liverpool.
Yeah.
There's like it's sometimes it's out of your club's hands. You can do as much as you want, and they're just going to decide to sign for someone else.
Sometimes the player just wants to sign somewhere else. Like Diaz said, once Liverpool were in, there was nowhere else I was going. All right, fair enough. Move on.
Yep.
And to all the intents and to all the noises, the Dragoshin one was that he chose us over Bayern, and that's so we're quite happy when it works that way round, and we're the good guys then. Yeah, and then when it happens to us, which inevitably it will do us at points, it's all Levy's fault. And the green and gold, the purple and gold get on their horses again, ride into town, and it's like everything's a fucking disaster. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
We are very much going in the right direction. The policy that we have now in recruitment is way tighter than I can ever remember. It seems like we've got a professional setup, data driven. We've got a whole team behind it. They'll get on. They'll do it. And I think we're in a good position, and players are wanting to come and play for Ange, and they want to come and play for us. So I think we're in the best position we've been in for years.
And the one last thing I would say is I think us as a fan base, we need to have some patience once the players do arrive. Like, people have been going on for Brendan Johnson, and Ange has had to come out again in his latest presser to say he wasn't meant to play this much. He's very much, he's a 22-year-old bought for the 5-6 year contract he's signed. Guys, calm down. We're not signing Messi, who's going to hit the ground running. Have some patience, have some perspective, and let's give the players confidence rather than tearing them to pieces straight away and ruining any chance of them making it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we're 6-8 months into a rebuild right now. It's not where we kept talking about needing a rebuild. We've been talking about needing a rebuild since Pochettino. We brought in 2 win now managers. Those worked out great. And then after those guys left, we as a fan base sat around and either decided that we needed to burn Enoch with fire, or we needed to have a rebuild. And Tottenham decided to have a rebuild instead of selling to Joe Buyer that no one ever actually found, that wanted the club for what it was valued at. And now we are way ahead of schedule in the rebuild. Everyone, we like I mentioned last podcast, I think we expected to finish 7th, 6th. We were happy with a place in Europe, and now that we had the start to the season that we did, we for some reason expect to just skip a bunch of steps. We have a bunch of really talented players. We have some players that are really talented but don't fit our system. We have areas that we can improve. For example, I think everyone is kind of in agreement at this point. We need a winger who can beat a man. We need a backup to Porro for when he's out. We needed center back depth. We got center back depth, and we're gonna continue to make the team stronger. And we are far from the peak of what we can be under Ange. We need to keep perspective of that when we're talking about this season.
And you're looking at those what are good squad players for us right now, but I don't think anybody would be. I don't think it's a big argument or disagreement if we said that probably Højbjerg, Skip, even move them out, move in a really good, and Lo Celso might well go as well. And then we're looking at a really good backup for Maddison, and some really good backups for that sort of like 6 and 8 role. So that takes time to do, and you can't do it all at once. Otherwise, you do end up sitting in the lower half of the table as well. So listen, we all at the start of the season we were all like, listen, it's going to be a tough season. We're going to have ups and downs. Be prepared for some really difficult points. We've had a set of about 6 to 8 weeks where it was really difficult with the injuries, with the missing, with the international duties. We're going to be back on track. Give it another couple of weeks, and then maybe coming back to this 2 weeks on the training pitch. Let them start gelling together in training. Let them start really nailing that, and let's see where we are in a few weeks' time. What we do have to do is really be hitting our stride and getting some points in the bag before we have that. Is it March? April. April's a really tough month. April's a tough month. I think we got Newcastle, Liverpool, Man City, and Arsenal on the bounce.
Yeah.
They're gonna
That's
throw
going to be
Chelsea in
that's
there
going to be a
too.
tough one.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it will be fun. And if these guys are firing like they were at the start of the season, it's going to be
they
wonderful
can do
to
it.
watch it.
Exactly.
So, listen, give it another 6 weeks, and we've had another good run. This all quietens down, doesn't it? So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't have said it much better. We've relax. It's okay. It'll be fine.
Calm
This
down.
is not the season that we're looking to win things. As much as it would be nice to win things every season, that this was never the aim. This was never the goal. We meant Johnny's friend who came on that first introduced us to the Church of Ange. Gave us a 3-season goal. We are in season
He did,
1.
yes.
And we're probably ahead of where he expected us to be season 1. So,
yeah,
it's going to be great. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Wasn't it Ange himself who said he needed at least 3 windows?
Yeah, he said you certainly don't get it done in 1 or 2. He said, So, and if it's as big a rebuild as we know it is, then that's going to take 3, maybe 4 windows to really move the players through and get new blood in. So, listen, next season you'll see something. You'll see something very different again next season, without a doubt.
But also, I think the board knew that, because unlike Mourinho and Conte, who had shorter contracts, they've given him a 4-year contract. So they clearly had the long discussion with Ange about it was going to be a tough rebuild. They were giving him the confidence with the long-term contract. They've been backing him so far. So I'm sure it's completely, as DJ was saying, we're probably ahead of schedule of where we as fans, for certainly the pundits, because remember HG showing where pundits had us finishing at the beginning of the season. And I'm sure probably even ahead of where the board had us, projected for the 4-year project. So I think people just need to chill, keep the faith, and everything's going to be fine.
Yeah, no, and for people who are getting mad on the internet about pundits saying that Ange has been found out and needs to change his system, remember that out the other side of their mouth, they're begging for him to go to Liverpool. They're begging for him to go somewhere else because he's a good. They're not gonna. No one ever tried to push Solskjaer onto City because
Ange has been found out. What a load of old bollocks.
Yeah. I think that with that hopeful look towards the future, I think we're gonna have to call it there, because we could keep talking about how nice the future is gonna look for hours and hours. But honestly, we can just sit back and watch it happen, and we will be here week after week to discuss the ups and discuss the downs. So with that, we will finish on an up the Spurs.
Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
And we will see you next week after no game, a week of rest. I think we all need it.
That's
Players
for sure.
and fans.